Robo Rally is a chaotic game of robot racing from designer Richard Garfield and publisher Avalon Hill.
In Robo Rally, players are bored factory AIs that program and race their worker robots through a deadly obstacle course. It supports from 2 to 8 players and plays in 1 or 2 hours.
So players begin Robo Rally by laying out the map of the course that they've chosen. Now, courses vary in terms of number of players, length, and difficulty. Then each player chooses the robot character that they're going to play, and they take the miniature, as well as the archive marker, the programming sheet, and 3 life tokens. All of the extra tokens and extra cards, as well as the factory floor guides, are placed beside the map.
Turn order is randomly determined, and the first player places their robot and archive marker in the number 1 space on the map. Once all of the other robots have been placed, every player draws 9 program cards, and the game begins. The first player to have their robot touch all of the course flags in order is the winner.
Each turn, players program their robot's registers with cards from their hand, and the robot will run through those cards from sequence from left to right. The cards are played face down. Once a player has played all of those cards and they're happy with them, they say that they are done and they can't look at or change any of those cards. The last player who has not announced done has 30 seconds to complete their register, or their cards will be laid at random by another player.
After programming, players with damaged robots can announce that they're powering down by playing a power down token. Now this means that they can remove all of their damage tokens right away, but their robot does nothing that turn. The robot can still be affected by board elements, however, so they can be moved around and they can take damage.
During activation, each register is resolved separately, and the player turn order is determined by priority number. So each card has a priority number in its upper right, and players will go in order from highest priority to lowest priority.
So each robot moves forwards or backwards the number of spaces indicated by their card, or rotates on the spot in the direction that's indicated. Robots can push each other around, but they're going to be stopped by walls, and no 2 robots can share the same space.
After all the robots have gone, the board elements move. So conveyor belts move a robot 1 or 2 spaces, or they turn them if they're on the right spot. Gears will turn a robot 90 degrees in one direction, and pushers will activate on the registers listed.
So once everything is done moving, the lasers fire. Board lasers are marked with a red line, and each robot also has a forward-facing laser that's going to shoot the first robot in their line of sight. Any robot that's hit by a laser is going to take 1 point of damage per shot, which is marked with a damage token.
For each point of damage on their sheet, a player takes 1 less card at the beginning of the next turn. Once a robot takes 5 points of damage, one of their registers is locked, so that means that the card that's in there can't be moved or changed. Once a robot takes 10 points of damage, that robot is destroyed.
Now, robots can also be destroyed by falling into a pit or going off the edge of the map. A robot that's destroyed loses all of its damage tokens, 1 option card, and 1 life token, and it comes back on the map in the space with its archive marker. Any robot that loses all 3 of its life tokens is out of the game.
So after the lasers have fired, any robot which is on a repair space or a flag moves their archive marker there, so that if that robot is destroyed, that robot respawns at that point. Now this sequence of steps follows for each of the 5 registers.
Now at the end of a full turn, any robot that's standing on a repair space with a single wrench gets to discard one of their damage markers. A robot on a space with a wrench and a hammer gets to discard a damage marker and collect an option card. At the end of the turn, any cards in unlocked registers are discarded, each player draws cards back up to their hand limit, and a new turn begins.
So I really like Robo Rally. It is definitely one of my favorite games to play. It's very silly, it's incredibly chaotic, and it will descend into that chaos very quickly in some games. It's got a great theme, it's really interesting and very different. All of the robots have names and backstories. It's just really fun, and it always ends up being a really great evening when we decide to play Robo Rally. That level of randomness in the game is also really great for beginner players. You can introduce a player to this game and they're not going to be at such an incredible disadvantage if they're playing with more experienced players. Just because of that randomness, it makes it into a level playground, which is really great. Unfortunately, a negative to this game though is the fact that it really does depend on spatial reasoning. So if you're the kind of person who's finds that challenging, moving your robot around and picturing it in your mind, the geometry of it can frustrate some people, and there are really some people who find that enough to turn them off the game entirely.
Another thing that might put some people off Robo Rally is that very randomness that makes it such silly fun. If you're a player who really likes to plan a strategy and play it out slowly over the course of a game and have control over everything, this game might not work for you. Or, it might be a really nice release or a nice difference. Some of that challenge that comes from both the randomness and all of the spatial reasoning that happens does mean that the game can also drag a little bit with larger groups. Once you get up above about 4 or 5 players, it can take a bunch of time to resolve all the registers. People can take longer to program their robots, and it just starts to drag more than such a light, silly game should. Now, that being said, this is still one of my favorite games as well. What I really love is all of the different courses. Not only is there a lot of replay value, which is always nice, but you can really tailor the game to what you want. They're very different in terms of difficulty. They're very different in terms of how many players they support, how long they're going to play for, and you can really tailor the game you're playing to the group that you've got and how much time you have, which is a really nice feature.